Balaba Girivaradhari Gopijana Balaba Girivaradhari Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Balaba Girivaradhari Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Tana Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Krishna. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 20th chapter, text number 44, is that correct?
Correct.
Sadho, Siddho, I'm sorry, I can't see properly. Forty-four. This one. Siddhan, the Siddhas. Vidyadharan, Vidyadharas. Chaeva, and also. Tirodhanena, by the faculty of remaining hidden from vision. Saha, Lord Brahma. Asrijat, created. Tevyaha, to them. Ratat, give. Tamatmanam, the form of his. Antardana Makyam, known as the Antardana. Adbhutam, wonderful. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Then Lord Brahma, by his ability to be hidden from vision, created the Siddhas, Vidyadharas, and gave them that wonderful form of his, known as Antardans. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Antardana means that these living creatures can be perceived to be present, but they cannot be seen by vision. The verse again, text number 44. Then Lord Brahma, by his ability to be hidden from vision, created the Siddhas, Vidyadharas, and gave them that wonderful form of his, known as Antardams. Om Gyanati Manandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurmaditam Jaina Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Svaparantikam Mukamba Kuroti Bachalam Pangam Longaya Tegirim Yatkri Pataraham Bande Shri Guru Dinatarane. I happen to notice that there's only 2 men in this temple room wearing dhotis, and the rest are wearing pants. No further opinion or comment. I just happened to notice it, so I'm mentioning it. Many times the people who commit serious crimes are avoiding capital punishment by the insanity plea. Srila Prabhupada narrates a story. I don't know if it's in his books or if it's just in one of his lectures, but he talks about a person who committed murder, and his lawyer. I don't know if this took place in Prabhupada's time or before. Said that it was called to the stand, and he pleaded insanity. So the question was whether this man was insane when he committed murder or not, and if he was insane, he could be excused. So this man was a an elderly person, psychiatrist and a professional doctor, and he said, in my opinion, everybody is insane. Of course, that's my opinion. But he said to the judge, he said, but of course, if you want to excuse the man, you're at liberty to do so. But in my opinion, he shouldn't be excused because everyone is insane. And that was the opinion. And there's a verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam that says that all persons are suffering, except those that are completely mad and those who are paramhansas. That's a verse. I don't know exactly where it is, but it's there. And so it indicates that everybody is either mad or suffering if they're not either a Bhagavatam super paramhamsa or completely insane. There's an English saying that seeing is believing, and Prabhupada taught us that hearing is more important than seeing. And there are many instances of people who, not many, but some instances of people who voluntarily gave up their eyesight. Bimal Thakur is one of them, who voluntarily put his eyes out. It sounds pretty gruesome, but it actually happened. Before I was a devotee, I saw a film called Master of the Flying Guillotine, and it was about a person who blinded himself, and even though he was blind, he was able to behead his enemies by throwing what looked like a circular saw that was connected to a cord at him and beheaded him. And then before I was a devotee, I read a story called The Valley of the Blind by H.G. Wells, and it was a fictional story. And it was about this is what I remember. It was about someone who was a mountaineer. And somehow or other he slipped and fell. And he fell into this valley of people that had contracted some disease and none of them could see. Everybody over generations, everyone in the valley had become blind. So this very vigorous mountaineer developed an attraction for a very beautiful woman that he saw to be extremely attractive, and he wanted to marry her. But it was the custom of the people in the Valley of the Blind that before a marriage would be enacted, it had to be approved of by the elders of the village. And the elders of the village said, well, of course, if you want to marry this woman, you have a right to do so. But we have one condition. We have to have removed those two perception pieces that are below your forehead. And I think you have a unique ability to perceive. And he began to think, was he so much in love with this beautiful woman that he wanted to lose his eyesight for the rest of his life? And I don't know what actually happened, but in the story, he decides that he wants to retain his eyesight, and somehow or other he rejoins his colleagues and continues his mountain climbing with eyesight. So in a sense, these kinds of stories are written some by English poets or English novelists, and every once in a while they say something that reflects what we learn from Prabhupada, that hearing is more important than seeing. And we have the story of Bilbo Mangal who voluntarily blinded himself, and he became a very great devotee even though he was unable to see. And according to what Prabhupada has written and what we've heard, what we've read, he lived for 700 years, and he wrote very voluminously about Krishna, and he's quoted very frequently in Prabhupada's books and throughout Prabhupada's speeches, Bilbo Mangal Thakur. And the verse talks about the ability of Lord Brahma and others to create, even though we can't see them. They have the unique ability to create things, including ourselves, even though we can't see them. And there are many people besides Lord Brahma who have that power. One is Lord Yamaraj. Yamaraj knows all the time what we are thinking. So we have the concept of mind readers, or people who can tell what we're thinking, but they have such powerful intellects. Some of these beings in higher planetary systems, they can actually tell what we are thinking, including Lord Brahma. So visibility is not so important. And Prabhupada taught us that we have to learn by hearing, not by seeing. Although seeing is very important, and it's very important for us to read what Prabhupada has written and what he has said. It's all available, even though seeing is not so important. But seeing is kind of like hearing, and there's a lot of references in Vedic literature to the people who are disembodied, or ghosts. And there's a philosophy in another religion that one who commits suicide becomes a ghost. And there's a convention in some parts of the world where people go to places, certain places, like Gaia and other places, to relieve the departed ancestors from ghostly or disembodied life. It doesn't happen very often, but it happens often enough that people do gravitate to these kind of places and offer pinda to liberate their ancestors. And it's still a very common thing. Even Lord Chaitanya went to, I think he was in Gaia, because he followed the tradition. He was playing the role of an ordinary person to alleviate the ancestors. And Prabhupada has talked about this in a few places, and more than one. And he refers to a verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam that says if someone is a devotee, they're in their next life they're assured to be born in a very well-to-do family, or a very aristocratic family, or a family of Brahmins or devotees. And we've seen the truth in this, that people who are very young, if they're born of devotees, or people who became devotees when they were very young, are extraordinarily talented and attached to Krishna. So it does happen. These stories they're not just stories. And Prabhupada tells about ghosts. And once I think I narrated the story. Once he rented a place that was had a very low rent. It was supposedly a haunted house, and people wouldn't rent it because it was supposed to be full of ghosts. But Prabhupada rented it anyway. And then one evening he told in his lecture that I could see that there was a ghost there. And so the devotees asked Prabhupada, no, this wasn't a lecture, I think it was in a room conversation. Some devotees were there, and they asked Prabhupada what he did after he was aware of a ghost. And he said that, I chanted Hare Krishna, and the ghost went away. So the idea is that you can chant Hare Krishna, and ghosts will lose their power to haunt or to possess people. And there are many different versions of Hollywood has produced its own versions of ghostly life and what a ghost is. They even made a film called Ghost. And it was based on a real incident. It doesn't happen very often, but sometimes ghosts can become very powerful. And they can move objects even though they don't have physical bodies. And in some places, Prabhupada has said that not only are our ancestors liberated from material life and they can get another body, but this goes for even future generations. So he goes forward and backwards. Many generations are liberated if you become a devotee. There was one instance where Swarup Damodar, it was I think in 1977, late 1997, Prabhupada was very ill. And Swarup Damodar wanted to go to his place of birth, which was Assam or someplace in northeast India or Nepal. And Prabhupada said, well, it's not necessary. And then he quoted the verse that's in the 11th canto that says that it's not necessary to, once you become a devotee, to liberate your ancestors, because they'll automatically be awarded by Kunta in their next life or a very high birth. And he sort of talked him out of it, even though the devotee was very intent upon going back to leaving Prabhupada's service to satisfy his relatives. But the truth of the matter is that it's, Prabhupada quoted the verse from the 11th canto that says, once you become a devotee, that you don't have an obligation. The obligations that you're born with are obligations to your ancestors, to all people, to animals, to great sages. You don't have any obligations to fulfill, because by chanting Hare Krishna, you're automatically fulfilling all those obligations. Sometimes we find in Shastras there are apparent contradictions. There's one verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam that says, Savai pamso parodharmo yaktir bhaktir hosije ahoitaki apratiyata yayad mam uprasidati, that the supreme occupation for all humanity is devotional service to the Supreme Lord. There is no other way, there's no other way, there's no other means. So it sounds as if, because it's said 3 times, there's an emphasis on the what we call possibility that you don't have to necessarily be a Hare Krishna to worship God. You can do it you can call God Allah or the Father or Jehovah or whatever, and still be liberated. Although liberation is not exactly the highest position one can obtain. Sometimes that refers even to people who obtain the Brahma Jyoti. Their form of liberation is not complete. But still, if one is a Christian, Jew, or Mohammedan, or Buddhist, it's possible to obtain liberation by just following their principles. And another place, I think it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says Harinama, Harinama. We're all familiar with this verse, Harinama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, 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 gatir anyata. And there again it's said 3 times, nasteva, 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 there is no other means, there is no other means, there is no other means, which makes it sound as if Krishna consciousness is the only way. And the other verse seems to say that there are many different ways to approach God. So there are apparent contradictions. And even though there are apparent contradictions, devotees realize that Krishna, and it's said in another place, that is the resolver of all seemingly contradictory opinions. And there are many contradictory opinions. But somehow or other, the contradiction is nullified if one becomes a devotee of Krishna. And even though we read these kind of things, that there are apparent contradictions in Shastra, we know that through our devotion to Prabhupada and to the disciplic succession, that these things can be effectively eradicated, even though they appear to be very contradictory. And people can argue about these things over and over and over again. In fact, it's said that one is recognized as a Muni only if his philosophy differs from other Munis. But according to the Gayatri Mantra, we have to, the last mantra says that we have to worship Krishna, and that if we associate with devotees who approve of what we're doing, then that can be done. And Lord Chaitanya approved of this. It's part of the Gayatri Mantra, that if one associates with devotees, then all apparent contradictions can be nullified. And we have our everyday experience in this, but in following the teachings of Prabhupada, that the things that are apparently contradictory can be accommodated. Just as one Muni may differ from another, one Shastra may differ from one another, and yet they can be accommodated in a way. So Prabhupada has taught us that invisibility is not so important. In fact, we're here because of invisibility. Because Lord Brahma created us, he was invisible to us, and Lord Shiva and Lord Yamaraj and many others have the ability to be unseen and to create life. So I think we'll stop at this point, and if there are any comments or questions, we'll have a go. Yes? Yes? This lady. Julan.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for wonderful class. You mentioned that if you will become a pure devotee, there's no other duty other than being a devotee, if I understood it right. And that includes family duty or duty for society and things like that.
Includes which?
Duty for family.
Yeah.
That includes duty for family. But in order to help family, or especially parents, for their spiritual progress, because they can't accept us as a devotee, but they can accept us as a good son or daughter. So in that case, is also our duty as a devotee to become a good son or daughter so that they can accept Krishna consciousness through us performing that role. Do you think it applies to help them?
It's an obligation, and Lord Chaitanya even himself took part in this pinda in Gaya to follow the conventions of the people of that part of the world. And not long ago, the minister of deity worship said that it's improper to dress the deities in red and white clothes at Christmas time. And there was a time when a Christmas tree was actually inside the New Dwarka temple. I don't think that's been recently, but it was for a time it was done. It was allowed. So apparently there's nothing wrong with celebrating Christmas or New Year's or anything like that, or to go to Gaya, because like you said, it will satisfy our parents that maybe we are doing something that's unusual or different, or we're part of a cult or something that they don't approve of. But if we play the ordinary role of a dutiful son or daughter, they're impressed. The Krishna consciousness must be all right, because my son, my daughter is acting in a way that I act, and I think it's right. So it's not that it's necessarily wrong. It's just unusual. And that one doesn't have to do it, but we do things like this to make our own relatives feel better. And there's an instance that I recall when there's a devotee named Sringananda he's in his late 60s or early 70s now, who produces ITV, whose mother was a very active anti-cult member, very, very active, a leader of the whole anti-cult movement in the United States. And Prabhupada knew about this. But he accommodated her in a very friendly way, and he advised her that your son should continue his education, get his master's degree, and he was studying in England, in London, and she was very satisfied with that. But he knew that she was actually an enemy of the Hare Krishna movement. She was a very anti-cult, a very, very prominent leader. But in a sense, he was, according to time and place and circumstance, he was being very friendly to this woman, this person. So it's not that it's wrong to do that. It can be done, and we have to act according to the situation as it and who's involved. And so even though the Bhagavatam says it's not necessary, it still sometimes is necessary. It's helpful. Does that make any sense?
Sorry, what is sometimes necessary?
Sorry?
I missed your word. What is sometimes necessary, you just said?
It's sometimes necessary because we don't want our parents to feel estranged, that their son or daughter is involved in something destructive, which they don't understand what we're doing. They don't understand why we wear these kind of clothes, why we wear these kind of marks on our forehead. They don't understand a lot of things. But if we act like we're normal, maybe we're not going to eat what they serve because there's meat in there, still they feel, oh, well, there must be something good about these people and what they're doing, because they're good, they're dutiful, they're taking care of us. So even though it may not be necessary, it's not wrong. But in a way, it's wrong to see the deities dressed in red and white on Christmas time, because that's carrying it to an extreme. Or having a Christmas tree in the temple, that's pretty extreme. And I don't think that's any longer happening, but that did happen at one time. Because we live in a Christian country, Australia, and North America is like that too, and England is like that too. I mean, it's the religion that has the largest number of followers in the world, Christianity. Whether it's Roman Catholic or Protestant or Seventh-day Adventist or whatever it is, it's still Christian. So sometimes we have to observe Christian rituals, although in the temple room it's a little bit extreme. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Dhanwad Pranam Maharaj. May I ask a question regarding this particular verse? What is the purpose of creating the Siddhas and Vidyadharas? And what is the purpose of them giving this invisible form, Antadhara?
Well, what's the first part of your question?
The purpose of creating the two Siddhas and Vidyadharas.
The creation of many beings, even though they're created from an invisible source, shows that there are sources that we can't see that are greater than we are. Lord Brahma is able to understand what we are thinking. Lord Yamaraj is able to understand what we are thinking. And there are many other leading devotees who are very powerful, and they're able to see. Dhruta Karma wrote a book called Human Devolution. It was printed some time ago, about 20 years ago. And in there he cites this woman named Madame Curie, who conducted a number of seances in which she hoped to communicate with the dead. And it's not unusual, it is unusual, there are some people who can choose their next birth. People who are very attached to a certain place or a certain family can take birth in that place or in that family. And so this Madame Curie and her husband, they were able to get sons and daughters of departed relatives to see apparitions or ghostly forms of their departed ancestors. It's unusual, but it's possible that even ghosts can be seen sometimes on rare occasions. So that is part of the reason why, of course, a lot of it is superstitious, why people go to places like Gaia and other places to satisfy the conventions of that part of the world. But sometimes it's necessary to do.
So is it a similar, creed or beings such as Siddhis who has supernatural powers? Who known as Siddhas?
Is your question, why are they created?
So there is beings known as Siddhis who have supernatural powers.
Yes.
They can perceive, things that cannot be seen, or they can perceive the future. Are they similar? Is it similar?
Those powers they're important. They can travel through outer space where there's no air. They can, their airplanes are completely silent. There's no vibration and no noise. They're made of flowers. And it's possible to aspire to those things and even to obtain that kind of a birth. We can become in future a Siddha or Vidyadhara or someone who is extraordinarily powerful or intelligent. But again, it's material. And after their pious activities are expired, they have to return to the material world, and it happens very often that they build hospitals, that they do sort of mercenary work or work that helps the human beings to get along in the world. So they do some good things, but again, it's material. and it's not devotional service. So those kind of beings are created to enable certain people to fulfill their desires. People have desires that aren't necessarily spiritual, but they try to get them fulfilled, and Krishna allows them to do it. So they create their own hell, so to speak. It's not, if there's evil in the world, it's not God's fault. It's because people want to be evil. It's because they have desire to do something like commit a murder or be a sensual person. They have desire to do that, and Krishna allows them to fulfill that sinful desire, even though it's not proper. But he's not a control freak. He's not forcing us to be one way or the other. He's giving us the freedom. And he even says in the last chapter of Bhagavad Gita, now to Arjuna, Krishna says to Arjuna, I've told you all the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, now you decide what to do. So he's giving us the freedom to either turn towards him or turn away from him.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I was just hoping if you could explain how do we solve this contradiction that you mentioned about the verse that says that only chanting of holy name is only one way for spiritual progress, and then another verse was saying that if you worship God in any sort of religion, then that's all you need to do. How do we solve that contradiction that you mentioned?
Well, we solve it just like you're solving it. You come to the devotees, you associate with devotees, you come to the temple, you read Prabhupada's books, and you'll see that even though these things appear to be contradictory, there's a solution. We can accommodate things that are completely different. And we learn that through devotional service. And through actions of devotees. There's no guarantee that, but people can argue about these things till they're blue in the face and never come to a conclusion. But the real conclusion is if one becomes a devotee, devotional service rectifies all apparent contradictions. And, yeah. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
So I think we'll stop at that point before breakfast gets cold. I see a lot of people are moving up towards the Prasadam Pavilion now. Hare Krishna.
Shri Mukunda Maharaj ki